And welcome back to the Champ of Champions NFL tournament. This is the ultimate what if battle to determine the greatest Super Bowl champion of all time. So, for those of you just tuning in, here's the quick refresher. We took the 59 Super Bowl winning teams, seeded them based on SRS rating, that's their point differential, adjusted for strength of schedule, and then we simulated every matchup using whatifsports.com to see basically who comes out on top. Now, each game was run as a full simulation with historical rosters, real coaching tendencies, and even a home field adjustment where every game will be played at a neutral site. So we played every game at the Cotton Bowl. Now, we have the third round. It's basically complete, and here's how today's video will break down. We're going to preview the regional finals for each of the regions, and then we're going to highlight the key players, strengths, and weaknesses of each team remaining. And then finally, we're going to preview the betting lines and give you our models, predictions, and picks. So let's get right into the video. All right, so just briefly before we get into the preview, you're going to see in the rank columns basically the numbers 1 through 59. And that's exactly what we did here. We ranked the 59 champions based on these metrics, and these are the only metrics that we could use that go as far back as Super Bowl 1. So I know some of you guys are familiar with our content already. When we, touch on the 2025 season or even the 2024, you'll see much more stats here. And that's because we had to eliminate the ones that don't go back all the way to Super Bowl 1. So these are the numbers for the actual seasons for those teams and where they stack up to the rest of the Super Bowl champions, not where they were in that respective season. So I hope that makes sense. Now, moving forward, we're going to touch on the North Final. What a clash that we've got here, right? We got the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the greatest defenses the game has ever seen, taking on the 1984 San Francisco 49ers. That's that Joe Montana-led juggernaut that could light up the scoreboard in a heartbeat. So let's start with the Bucs. Tampa comes in with a power rating of 8.8. It's one of the lowest left in the field, but don't let that fool you, right? The team's identity is defense. They allowed just 12.3 points per game that season, ranking seventh best of all time when you're comparing them with the 59 champions. And their pass defense is suffocating, right? Giving up a microscopic 46 opponent passer rating. That's Derek Brooks roaming the sideline to sideline, Warren Sapp wrecking the pockets, and then Rondé Barber shutting down receivers. But the Achilles heel to this team is the offense, as you can see. Brad Johnson and company manage only 21.6 points per game. That's bottom half of the field. And then their yards per play rank is way down at 52nd, almost the worst of all the 59 Super Bowl champions. If they can't get turnovers, this team struggles to keep up in a shootout. So let's go to the other side. It's the 1984 49ers. This is a totally different story. You got San Francisco, they roll in with a power rating of 12.75. So it's not necessarily elite, but it is top 10 compared to the other champions. Their offense was devastating, right? Nearly 30 points per game, top 10 historically, 6.0 yards per play, and Joe Montana's passer rating north of 100. He had Jerry Rice's mentor in Dwight Clark, plus Roger Craig coming out of the backfield as a weapon. The weakness here, though, it was the defense, and it was good, but it wasn't dominant. They gave up about 14.2 points per game, still solid, but their yards per play allowed 5 yards, which doesn't exactly scare you compared to Tampa's wall of doom, right? So what's the story here? It's going to be that strength on strength. The Bucs' legendary defense versus Montana's balanced, high efficient offense. The wild card is whether Tampa's offense can score enough to stay in it, because if Joe Cool gets into a rhythm, even the most dominant defense can bend. The bold prediction is this one's going to come down to turnovers. If Brooks or Barber take one to the house or even get one deep into San Francisco's own end of the field, Tampa may be able to grind this one out. But if Montana plays clean and the Niners' firepower might just overwhelm those Bucs, either way, you guys got to buckle up because defense versus dynasty, and only one is moving on. Now, let's break down the betting lines and model predictions for the North Final between the 0-2 Bucs and the 84 49ers. Vegas has this one with the Niners as a 4-point favorite, sitting at about minus 200 on the money line, while Tampa comes in at a plus 165. The over-under is set at just 40.5 points, which tells you the expectation here is a grinded-out defensive battle, not necessarily a shootout. The model itself is leaning San Francisco as well, so we built a little tiny model with our stats, and it's giving them a 68-point chance to win the game, but that's also saying that they won 68% of the Monte Carlo simulation. So I just want you guys to know that. And in those 10,000 simulations, the average score was 21-18, and that spread holds pretty close to the betting line. But the key signal here is the under on total points. So the storyline is simple: can the Bucs defense force turnovers and keep it within striking distance, or will Joe Montana and Bill Walsh's offense do just enough to pull away late? Either way, don't expect fireworks, expect toughness, field position, and one or two big plays to swing the result. Now we're going to shift to the West, and in this matchup, it's going to feel like a clash of two different football eras colliding head on. On one side, you've got the 1994 49ers, a team loaded with firepower, led by Steve Young in his MVP season. On the other, though, you have the 1969 Kansas City Chiefs, a hard-nosed, defense-first squad that capped off the AFL era with the Super Bowl IV title. Now, let's start with San Francisco. Their offense was explosive, right? It was ranked third in points per game out of all the 59 winners, and the Niners averaged 31 points while Steve Young posted an incredible 112.8 passer rating. That's tops out of all the 59 Super Bowl winners as well. Then you're going to add in Jerry Rice, the greatest basically wideout of all time, alongside weapons like John Taylor and Ricky Watters, and this was a unit that could score from anywhere on the field. Their big strength, though, was efficiency. They didn't just rack up yards, they finished drives. But the weakness on the team, if you would say that they have one, it would be the defense. It can be vulnerable at times. It give up nearly 19 points per game, ranking in the 40s against both the pass and somewhat of the run. They weren't as dominant on that side of the ball. Now, Kansas City, the 69 Chiefs weren't flashy on offense, but they were balanced and disciplined. Len Dawson as quarterback kept things steady, while running backs Mike Garrett and Robert Holmes helped grind out tough yards. Their scoring average of about 25 points a game wasn't necessarily elite, but it was more than enough when you paired it with the ferocious defense. The defense was the backbone of the team. Buck Buchanan, Bobby Bell, and Emmett Thomas in the secondary, they held opponents to just 12.6 points a game, with one of the stingiest pass defense in football history. Their weakness: the passing game was not explosive for the 69 Chiefs. Dawson's efficiency was fine, but when Casey had to play from behind, the offense sometimes sputtered. So what's going to be the story here? It's going to be strength on strength. San Francisco's high-flying offense against Kansas City's shutdown defense. The Niners want to spread you out and let Young use his arm and even his legs to create those mismatches while Jerry Rice punishes any coverage breakdown. The Chiefs, though, they'll try to muddy the waters. They're going to want to keep the pace very slow and trust that defense to rattle Young the way that they rattled Frank Tarkenton in the Super Bowl. So let's move on to Vegas and what they think. And the odds makers basically call it a coin flip. The 94 49ers come in as the slightest of favorites, just laying 0.2 points. We can really call this a pick 'em. Over-under is set at about 44.5, so they're expecting a hard-fought, low-scoring battle. Our model predictions reflect a razor-thin margin. San Francisco projected at 22.1 scores, while Kansas City is at 22 even. So that's a virtual dead heat. And with both teams showing about 50% win probability, it's basically right down the middle. But those average scores, you have to remember, are based on 10,000 Monte Carlo simulations. And here's where things get a little bit interesting. While the betting line's treated like a toss-up, the model leans just enough towards the 94 49ers to pick them both against the spread and straight up with the under hitting on the total. Bottom line here is the West Final as close as it gets. Young in the 94 offense versus Dawson in those tough Chiefs. Something has to give, and whichever defense makes that one big stop might just decide who advances. All right, so here we go in the East. The 2014 New England Patriots against the 2013 Seattle Seahawks, and the numbers tell us this might be the toughest chess match of the regional finals. On paper, the Patriots boast a high-scoring offense, nearly 30 points a game with Tom Brady at the helm, spreading the ball to Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman. Their offensive line wasn't dominant, but Brady's efficiency of 97 passer rating kept the chains moving. But Seattle answers with the Legion of Boom. The defense allowed just 14 points a game and only 4.4 yards per play. Those are elite numbers that back up their reputation. Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, they will try to erase Brady's short passing game, while Bobby Wagner and that front seven aim to make the Pats one-dimensional. Offensively, though, Seattle wasn't flashy, just over 26 points per game, but Russell Wilson's dual threat ability combined with Marshawn Lynch's bruising ground game gave them balance. The Pats defense allowed nearly 20 points a game and ranked bottom half in yards per play allowed. which means Lynch could have some big day wearing them down. The strengths, though, for New England, they are surgical passing attack versus Seattle's historical secondary. The weakness, though, the Pats' defense is vulnerable to power runs, while Seattle's offense could struggle if Wilson is forced into obvious passing downs. The bottom line here is that the numbers tilt slightly towards Seattle thanks to their defense, but Brady's clutch factor keeps the Patriots alive in any matchup. The East Final is all about who dictates tempo, Brady's rhythm passing, or Lynch's ground and pound. Either way, expect fireworks and a finish that could go down to the last possession like we seen in that 2014 Super Bowl. All right, so let's talk betting lines now for the East Final between the 14 Patriots and the 13 Seahawks. Vegas has this one razor tight. Seattle's a slight 2-point favorite with the over-under set at 44.5. That tells you odds makers expect a grinded out defense-driven battle. Our prediction model has this basically as a coin flip. Patriots projected at about very close to 22 points, while Seattle is very close to 23 points. That's less than a 1-point margin, and the probability splits just 46% New England, 55% Seattle. And that's because of just the rounding. Practically dead even here. And when we look at the model picks, it leans Seattle on both the spread and the money line. But notice it also calls for the under. That means Legion of Boom might just keep Brady and company in check, while Marshawn Lynch pounds away to control the tempo. Bottom line here, it's a true toss-up. Seattle may have the edge, but you can never count out Belichick and Brady in this big of a stage. Now let's move on to the South Final, and this is the ultimate clash of contrast. We have an unstoppable offense against an immovable defense, right? On one side, you've got the 99 St. Louis Rams, the greatest show on turf, ranked number one in scoring at nearly 33 points per game, first in yards per play, and led by Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, and an electric receiving duo of Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. This team has all gas and no brakes. They overwhelm opponents with speed, precision, and big playability. Simply put, if they get rolling, you're playing catch up all afternoon. On the other side, though, you have the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. It's no flash here. It's no gimmicks and just pure punishment. This defense is ranked number one in points allowed, holding teams to a ridiculous 10 points per game and a top tier against both the run and the pass. Ray Lewis is the heartbeat, backed by Tony Siragusa and Sam Adams clogging those trenches, with Rod Woodson patrolling the secondary. Their offense, well, it's the opposite of St. Louis, to say the least. Trent Dilfer and the Ravens ranked near the bottom in scoring and efficiency compared to the 59 Super Bowl winners, but they leaned on Jamal Lewis to grind clock and let that defense suffocate opponents. So what happens when the best defense ever meets one of the best offenses ever? Baltimore's weakness is obvious. They can't win a shootout. If the Rams put up their average, the Ravens are in serious trouble. But if Ray Lewis and company can slow Warner's timing, force turnovers, and keep the game ugly, the door will crack open for Jamal Lewis and Matt Stover to grind out just enough points. The bottom line here is this South Final is the classic football argument personified. Defense wins championships, or offense lights up the scoreboard. One way or another, something has to give. And here we go. Here is the South Final betting outlook between the 2000 Ravens and the 99 Rams. Vegas has this one lined up with the Rams as a basically a 4-point favorite, which makes sense when you consider the greatest show on turf, firepower. The over-under is set at 40.5, but our model is leaning toward the under here, with both defenses expected to tighten up. Now, looking at the predictions, the Ravens are projected around 18 points, while the Rams are closer to 22, giving St. Louis about a 71% chance to win. And that's a big edge, and it really highlights how tough it's going to be for Baltimore to keep up offensively. The model's official pick is Rams to cover in the under on total points, but can the Ravens' all-time greatest defense slow down Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, and those receivers? That's going to be the huge question. Or will the Rams' speed simply just overwhelm them? That's going to be the question here in the South Final. And that wraps up the regional final preview. If you're still with us, you're a real one, but we're just getting started. Now is your moment to jump in. You can subscribe so you don't miss any of the regional final results. Drop a like if you like this concept. And if you want to see videos that are much like this, like maybe a baseball, a basketball, or anything of the like, so just drop a like signifying to us that you like this content. Comment below who you think will win this tournament. And hey, share this with a friend who gets into these hypothetical historical matchups. In the next episode, we're going to give you the results and preview the Final Four. So stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one.